And I feel like it's easy to get swept up in all the bad news and to feel really helpless and disempowered and fearing the worst, I guess, if you were to contract such a virus. So whilst I'm not going to be specifically talking about the current pandemic, and I'm certainly not professing a cure-all elixir to the virus that is going around, I'm going to be talking to you about foods, nutrients, and lifestyle habits that can really help or inhibit against any virus, bacteria, or infection. And as Abby said, this session is really about separating the fact from the fiction when we're talking about the immune system and the crucial role that our nutrition plays in modulating our immune response. This is not, Trump purporting to drink bleach to kill a virus. I'm going to share with you evidence-based and science-backed information, because what I really want for you is to help shift from feelings of disempowerment. And I want you to leave this session today with some knowledge and tools for how you can take tangible and really, really simple steps to strengthen your immune system every day, all year round. So what I'm going to share with you is an overview of the immune system, what factors suppress our immune system, and then I'm going to share with you my top nutritional and lifestyle tips for supporting immune function. And I promise you it's not going to be a general just eat more fruits and veggies. I'm going to share with you really specific advice so you can walk away with new information and practical ways to implement the advice. Now, before I dive into the overview of the immune system, I just want to share a quick disclaimer that this is, of course, general information. It's not intended to diagnose conditions. So if you have a specific health condition or concern, I recommend you seek advice from your healthcare provider. So we know there's never been a more important time to think about our physical health. Yes, of course, flu season rolls around every year, and for parents with children in daycare or schools, we know that those dreaded illnesses can come home and infect an entire household. So you really want to be on the front foot to avoid or just at least minimize the impact. So I'm going to describe the immune system, and as I do so, I want to apologize in advance for the war analogies, but it is a war when our body is fighting something, and I want to create a visual for you. So let's start with what the immune system does. I'm sure we know generally that its role is there to protect us if there's an illness or infection. But what you might not know is there's actually two main parts of our immune system, the innate and the adaptive. So the innate is what we are born with. It's things like our skin as a barrier and mucous membranes in our nose, our mouth, our digestive tract, our urinary tract. And that's there to trap invaders. And then we've got defense cells that provide support through general mechanisms like inflammation, fever, redness, swelling. And fever is a really important immune function that gets quite a bad rap. It's part of our innate immune system. And what it does, what a fever does, it actually stimulates all of our immune cells to fire up into action. And the heat that's created when we have a fever really helps to kill an invaders, and particularly bacteria. So a fever of up to about 39 degrees really helps us as the host to rally all of our troops and get everyone involved to get rid of what is invading your body and causing the problem. And then we've got other parts of our innate immunity. So we've got immune cells that do really cool things like they enclose germs and digest them. And then we've got others that release substances to kill bacteria and germs. And then when germs and body tissue decay during an immune response, this produces pus. So this is all part of our natural immune response, that our body is doing what it needs to do. So I want you to think about innate immune system as the foot soldiers. You know, they've got a general amount of skills. They're pretty good at what they do, but they're limited in their strategic overview. Now, our adaptive immune system, so this is made up of B cells and T cells, and antibodies, a term that you might be familiar with. So these guys are like the special forces. They're like highly trained snipers, or the Jason Bourne characters. For anyone who's seen that movie, you know what I'm talking about. So with antibodies, these guys are created by the immune system to fight germs and foreign substances and viruses. So they have all sorts of skills. They can recognize a known germ at 100 paces, so to speak, and then they can attach the invader to stop it attaching to our body cells and infecting them. And once they've attached to that invader, they call in reinforcements from other parts of the immune system to destroy it. Now, what's really cool is every time they encounter a new type of invader, their skills expand, and they slot away memory of that invader for the rest of your life, so that if you ever encounter it again, you're able to combat it much more quickly. So that's a very brief overview of how our immune system works in the two parts of our immune system. And it's really important to know that both parts of the immune system are on surveillance all of the time. They take shifts and they help one another so that you always have a level of protection. So you want your army troops to be on surveillance. You want them to be primed and ready to rumble as and when they need. You want them to be fresh-faced, full of energy, you know, had their green juice so that they are ready to fight an enemy. What you don't want is for them to be exhausted and overworked doing their normal duties, because when a real invader comes, they're not going to be able to do as good a job against it. So that brings me to the suppressors of the immune system, things that go against your troops doing their best work. Now, there's two kind of things to consider. There's non-modifiable factors, so things that are out of your control, like how old you are, because your immune function does start to decline with age. If you have a family history of congenital disease, how you came into this world. So was it a cesarean or vaginal birth, or were you premature? Were you breastfed? All of these factors do have an impact on your health. And then where I focus a lot of my line of work as a clinical nutritionist is on these modifiable factors. So things that are in our control, things like sleep, stress, exercise, use of pharmaceutical and recreational drugs, and of course, diet. So modifiable factors can either suppress or support our immune function. So having a look at some really big suppressors of the immune system, stress is a massive one. So it suppresses our immune system by the very nature of what the stress response is meant to do. So what stress does is it focuses all of our body system's efforts on one goal, and that's escaping a threat. Now, our body doesn't know how to change its stress response depending on if there's a perceived threat, like work deadlines, family conflict, you know, whatever it may be, versus actually running from a tiger. The response in your body is the same. And what happens is digestion, reproduction, immune function, all of those things get pushed down the ladder in order of priority as our body produces cortisol and other stress hormones to be able to create this stress response. Now, what cortisol does is it actually suppresses immune function. So it suppresses inflammation, and inflammation is actually needed to activate our immune cells. So that's how stress has a really negative impact on our immune function. Antibiotics are another one. So overuse of antibiotics. So if you think in our digestive tract, we've got this thriving microbiome of bugs that fight off invaders. And one 7-day course of antibiotics can really decimate our microbiome for around 3 months. And some research is telling us up to a year. Now, this isn't meant to demonize antibiotics because they're absolutely necessary in a lot of cases. But what is often overlooked, and what I myself have experienced as a parent with children who get sick from time to time, is that sometimes antibiotics are dished out without proper investigation to the nature of an illness. So the clue is in the name, life. So antibiotics is anti-life. So they work against bacteria. They do not work against viruses. So there's actually no point taking antibiotics if you have a viral infection. So a simple step to take is, if you go to the doctor for a general, cold-like illness, before you accept the antibiotics, is just ask for a swab test to prove that it's a bacterial infection, so that you're not unnecessarily disrupting your gut microbiome and killing off your troops for no reason. Now, another suppressor is sleep. So I want you to think about when you're coming down with something, you're coming down with a cold or a flu, how do you feel? You feel really tired. Maybe you get a headache, get the body aches. Think of how tired you are when you've had a fever in your life. Now, I want to share with you that that is not your body sending you a big glaring signal of, please help me, grab for a Codral or a paracetamol and soldier on. That's your body screaming for you to stop and to rest. Because when you do, when you sleep, your immune system really goes to town with mopping up the mess and getting rid of an invader. So I got struck down with a cold and some laryngitis a couple of weeks ago. Now, you'd think, me being a nutritionist, I've got the tools, I know what to eat, I know what to do, I should be well. But the missing piece of the puzzle for me is that I am not in control of my sleep. So I have 3 boys under 5, and my youngest is 5 months. So no matter how much I want to take care of my body and know that I should, I don't get any more than 3 hours sleep at a time each night. So my body's ability to repair is being constantly interrupted. Now, what else goes on with sleep? So we've got some immune cells. They're called natural killer cells, and they're part of our innate immune system. So what they do, they're specialized in identifying cells that are infected by a virus or that have become tumorous. So when you have limited sleep, your natural killer cell activity goes down by up to 70%, 70. So that's really, really significant part of your immune system that are there to look out for cells that shouldn't be there or infections. And their activity declines significantly. Also, when there's a lack of sleep, so your genes, your genetics, so gene activity that goes up are genes that are connected to cancer and cardiovascular disease. So sleep is so, so crucial to allow our immune system to do its best work. Now, we can't talk about sleep without talking about alcohol. So alcohol reduces your absorption of key nutrients required for immune function, and it also blocks your deep sleep. So it really wreaks havoc on your quality sleep. Now, 1 or 2 drinks a couple of nights per week is not going to tip the balance, but consoling yourself through another lockdown with binging, no judgment, but I'm just letting you know that it's not going to tip your immune function in the right direction. So my recommendation is aiming for at least 3 nights per week that are alcohol-free, with reduced consumption on the other nights. Now, another suppressor of the immune system is our diet. So looking after our gut health is crucial to supporting our immune system, because 70% of our immune system lies in our digestive tract. It's known as the gut-associated lymphoid tissue, and our gut microbiome is responsible for producing that. So our gut is also part of our innate immunity. It forms a barrier that helps protect against invaders escaping into other parts of our body. So things that compromise our gut health compromise our immune health. So dietary choices like processed foods that are devoid of nutrients and fiber, and high refined sugar intake are really problematic. So consuming large amounts of added refined sugar and refined carbohydrates each day can impact your digestive function. What it does, it feeds your bad bacteria, and therefore can lead to an imbalance of good guys versus bad guys. And the reason that people with diabetes are more susceptible to illness is because they're unable to metabolize sugar as effectively, and so it remains circulating in their bloodstream. Now, the sugar in the bloodstream, it actually disables our immune system, so it makes it more difficult for our immune cells to arrive at the site of infection, to stay there and to kill the invader. So it can be really problematic for people who suffer with such illnesses. Now, when I talk about sugar, I want to be really clear that I'm not talking about fruit. Fruit is something that has been demonized horribly. So I'm not talking about reducing your fruit consumption, because fruit is such a nutritious whole food, and it contains such a wide variety of nutrients and fiber and so many beautiful things that are really crucial for your immune function. I'm talking about added sugar, refined things like cakes, biscuits, packaged foods, all that sort of stuff that has loads and loads of added sugar. So those are some key suppressors of the immune system. Now, if you've been listening closely, you may have noticed that I haven't once referred to immunity boosters or immunity boosting. So I just want to talk about that briefly, because immunity boosting is a term that has been thrown around in recent years, generally when a company is trying to market a product. But I want you to imagine our immune soldiers, so they're on patrol all of the time as I described, and when there's an enemy invader, they attack it. You know, they all come together and they attack it, and then they go back to their general surveillance. But what can happen is when your immune system gets overwhelmed from any number of the immune suppressors here on the screen, things like stress, genetics, poor gut health, nutrient deficiencies, what your soldiers are having to do is constantly fight around the clock, because there's so much inflammation going on. And because your system is on such high alert, your soldiers stop just fighting off what they perceive as the invader. They get so tired and so disoriented that they actually start fighting each other. And this is what's called autoimmunity, when your immune cells start attacking your own body tissue. So whenever I hear the talk of boosting the immune system, it always makes me think like someone saying, yay, let's get autoimmunity, which you do not want. So we want to support our immune system, we want to strengthen it, but we definitely don't want to boost it. You know, we don't want it to be so heightened all of the time. So I'm going to pause there for a couple of questions before I go into supporters of the immune system. Would anyone, do you have any questions, Abby, that you'd like to share?
Yeah, thanks, Kaylee. Look, we've had one come through now, which I'll ask. But yeah, I encourage anyone who has any questions for Kaylee, feel free to jump in at any time.
Sure.
You can answer them now. We'll also have some extra time at the end. One is in relation to fevers. What about giving Nurofen and Panadol for a fever? Is it recommended?
So there's lots of things to consider. I guess it's the nature of the illness. Going back to what I was saying earlier, fever has a really important role to play in the body when recovering from illness. Um, I wouldn't tell anyone to or not, but what I would consider is if it's a low grade fever, in terms of what the body needs to do, it needs to create heat, it needs that fever, it needs you to slow down in order to do its best work and create this really effective immune response. So I'd be considering whether or not to jump in straight away to bring that fever down, because like I mentioned earlier, fever has got such a bad rap, and I feel like as parents it's hard to see a child suffer, and it's not nice. But thinking about you probably delaying the recovery. So it's not that it's wrong, but you're probably just delaying the recovery if you dive in very quickly, and particularly, cycling through to keep that fever down the whole time. It's not recommended from an immune response.
Okay, really good to know. We've had a few questions come through in regards to sleep and probiotics. I might start with the sleep. So
Mhm.
I'll kind of combine these two. Someone has
Sure.
asked, can you catch up on sleep? And how much sleep is the absolute minimum before it's considered deficient? Great questions.
Yes. So, I mean, I could talk forever on this. There's so much research on sleep, and it's somewhere I focus a lot in my practice. So, can you catch up on sleep? Unfortunately, not. There is this thing called sleep debt, and over time, you build up a sleep debt. And if it's a lot of sleep debt over a long time, it's basically impossible to catch up on. Um, so it's a challenge. And then in terms of what's a minimal amount, so there's been lots of research on what's an optimal amount, which I'll come to when I talk about supporters of the immune system. But in terms of the baseline, so anything less than 6 hours is known as a sleep deficit. And what happens beneath that 6 hours is it dysregulates really key hormones, so your hunger and satiety hormones, so ghrelin and leptin, and it makes you more inclined to reach for refined carbohydrates. So they've done lots of research on groups, and particularly in women, it makes us more susceptible to gaining weight. So that, there's that science behind it. When you've had a late night, you're tired, or if people have had a few too many drinks and you think in the morning you just want those sort of comfort foods, there's a reason for that, because your hormones are out of whack. So 6 hours is the absolute bare minimum.
So it's hormones really that are driving from that sleep deprivation, that real
Yes.
kind of craving for the sugar, the
Yes.
carbs, right?
Yes, absolutely. And also because your body is awake for longer in the day than it should be, your body is trying to aggregate more calories, I guess.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. Okay, asking some questions now around or probiotics and prebiotics. You're,
Mhm.
I guess, asking for your thoughts and opinions on those in the diet.
Yeah, so I shared a post about this on my Instagram account recently, that probiotics, they get a lot of airtime because, everything is about getting a probiotic supplement. And there is a lot of research on the specific strains to treat specific symptoms. So there are strains that have been heavily researched that can really help with things like asthma, eczema, post antibiotic diarrhea. There's a strain for so many things. But what is always important is dose. So taking a broad spectrum probiotic, 1 capsule a day, I'm not saying it's doing any damage, certainly not, but is it doing what you're hoping it will? Probably not. And I don't recommend for my clients to take a probiotic every day. It's more use it as a specific intervention for a finite period of time to deal with a symptom. Now, prebiotics, on the other hand, they are totally my jam because you do not need to supplement prebiotics. So fiber, not all fiber is prebiotics, but all prebiotics are a form of fiber. And you get prebiotics from all fruits and veggies, particularly things with skin on, from whole grains. All of these whole foods feed your lentils, pulses, all these things feed your gut bugs. So probiotics are like the live bacteria that go in, but prebiotics are the food for your bacteria. So what you want is to be constantly feeding them so that they're able to thrive and proliferate within the gut. So prebiotics is where I always focus my attention all year round with clients, and then probiotics go in, like I said, for a specific intervention.
I was going to say that that post that you did on Instagram a little while back, sort of is talking about the two. I just found it so incredibly helpful. So if you guys aren't yet following Cailie, you may not be. We've put her handle in the chat for Instagram, and we'll also share that post as well, because it's really, really good at kind of clarifying between the two and the role of each, which I didn't know. So I'm really grateful for it.
Perfect.
So talking a little bit more around gut health, Mary has asked, when you finish a round of antibiotics, what's the best food to kind of rebuild that gut health?
Yes, so all the prebiotics that I just mentioned, all of those whole foods. So things like the skin on kiwi fruit, excellent prebiotic fiber. And I know that's quite divisive. Things like nuts and seeds, excellent prebiotic fiber. The whole grain, so quinoa, buckwheat, rolled oats, fabulous. All fruits and veggies, basically, you cannot go wrong. Those are really, really excellent for building back up. And then I would actually recommend probiotics. I'm not going to talk about specific strains and products, but if someone came to me post antibiotics, I would actually recommend a probiotic to go in there just to help support the body after antibiotics.
Okay, great. Thank you. We've had another question around sleep, ever popular topic. I mean, for people that can't get the recommended amount, in particular, someone asked, I think they might be a shift worker. Is there any advice that you can give?
Yeah, so shift workers, that is a real challenge because you're basically fighting against our natural inclination to sleep 1 to 2 hours after the sun goes down, and really use when melatonin is at its highest before midnight. And so there are challenges around that. The shortest answer, because I've done a lot of research, I have a number of clients who are shift workers, a lot of medical professionals that are just, that is how they, you can't get around it. And so there's advice around trying to eat smaller meals throughout the nighttime, because of the function of your digestive system. It isn't as effective in those evening hours. Your metabolism of glucose goes down, and so there's more susceptibility to weight gain and things like that in shift workers. But it's not, you can do a lot to help it. There's you're at kind of on the back foot because of the nature of the work, but by focusing on really nutrient dense foods, you can certainly support yourself to achieve sleep when it comes to you.
Yeah, and I imagine there's so many shift workers, and in particular in the medical industry at the moment, that we're so grateful, for them to be able to do that when it's such such a toll. Just on that, do you have any thoughts around melatonin as a supplement in those situations?
So there's 2 types of melatonin on the market. There's the herbal form, and then there's the synthetic hormone form. I mean, hormones are always a tricky one because you don't want to kind of interfere with your own body's production of hormones, because that can have a knock-on effect down the line. Short term, a herbal melatonin if it helps for a night or two, sure, they can be really helpful on long haul flights.
Yep.
As if anyone's doing those at the moment.
Sadly not.
But there are actually plenty of foods that are rich in melatonin that you can consume, that I can actually share some information on that after the session. Things like bananas, yogurt, rich in melatonin. Also foods that help us produce melatonin. Things like turkey.
Lettuce, is that one? I heard lettuce could help people be sleepy. Turkey and lettuce,
any
I'd heard.
leafy greens are good anyway.
Right.
But yeah, I can share some
Turkey.
more information on that after the session.
So perhaps that's why after a Christmas lunch, some are partial to a bit of a snooze on the couch.
That's probably
From
the carb
turkey.
Loading.
Also the
and the
and
red
maybe
wine.
some wine. Yeah, definitely. It's not the turkey at all, actually. Too funny. Okay, so we've had some more questions around the gut. Someone asked what your view is on taking collagen, and in particular for the gut, the relationship with collagen.
So collagen is a protein, effectively. What's really important, so with any kind of supplements, quality is really important. And you also need vitamin C to activate collagen. So taking a collagen supplement without vitamin C, not going to be doing much. Look, I think collagen is one of those things that it's having its moment, and
Definitely.
it's all very now. There is research around types of collagen for hair, skin, and nail quality. But in terms of, being one of those cure-all elixirs, I wouldn't put it up there, because we should all be focusing on quality protein that has all the amino acids that we need, that we get from whole foods. If you eat animal products, also if you're a vegetarian, combining foods like grains and legumes and vegetables to obtain all those amino acids. I feel like whenever a product is put out, it's very reductionist, that they're focusing on one element, and yet there's so much that we don't know in the nutrition space. We're learning stuff every day, and we don't even know some of the things that are in these whole foods that have all these synergistic effects. So focusing on one nutrient and hoping that it's going to do all these things that we could get by eating these whole foods can lead to disappointment, and also just hurt your wallet.
I was going to say, the marketing is just so good, though. You can look like Elle Macpherson if you add some collagen.
And that's always the thing. When you get someone famous, you get influencers. Yeah. Absolutely. So I would definitely be encouraging doing the research on collagen, and you need vitamin C with it.
Yeah, that's really interesting to know about the vitamin C. I knew, for example, that it's good to take it with iron supplements. Wasn't aware, but it seems like it helps with the absorption of quite a few different
vitamin C
in the
is
body.
incredible, which I'm conscious of time, so I want to move on to supporters of the immune system, because we will definitely be talking about a lovely friend, vitamin C. The variety of lifestyle factors that I mentioned on the previous slide just before we broke for questions that suppress the immune system, I really want to focus on 3 top lifestyle factors to support our immune system, because if you're nailing these 3 things, your health, your longevity, everything is going to benefit. And as much as, I focus on nutritional interventions, I operate very holistically, because all of the nutrients in the world are not going to help you if you're not getting these 3 lifestyle factors right. On the next slide. Thanks, Abby. Thank you. So stress. We talked about stress in terms of the suppression of the immune system. Now, I'm very conscious that what we're all going through right now, whether you're in Sydney or you're elsewhere, I know Melbourne has come out of lockdown. But, you know, there's always this, I guess, fear, this hanging fear that we could go into lockdown at any moment. So it's been a really stressful situation this past year. You know, the whole of 2020 was stressful. Here in Sydney, we thought we were through it, and then it's like the demon has just reared its ugly head again. So I get it. I'm not sitting here as some Zen monk just, you know, telling you to stress less, or that super helpful advice of just relax. I want to share with you one simple thing that you can do to reduce stress, and that is movement. So just 20 minutes of continuous movement can reduce cortisol by 60%. So cortisol, one of our stress hormones. Now, 60%, that's a significant amount. And I'm not talking about HIIT workouts. You know, gyms aren't open at the moment anyway. HIIT workouts have their place, sure. But I'm talking about getting out of the house, going for a brisk walk, that kind of movement. And if, like me, you've found yourself, again, working full-time at home with your partner, or maybe it's family or housemates, getting out of the house for a little walk, a little breather is a welcome break from being in each other's faces all the time. So a strategy that I share with my one-on-one clients is that you can either make it a social activity, so going out for a walk with a friend under the current guidelines, or you can head out with your favorite podcasts. So think of it like binging on the latest Netflix series, and then all of a sudden your exercise has turned into a self-care activity. So we should all be aiming for 20 minutes of continuous movement minimum daily. And I encourage you that if it's not a walk, find something else that you love, you know, anything in terms of dancing, yoga, Pilates, chasing your kids around, riding a bike, surfing, roller skating, all of these things you can do no matter what our lockdown restrictions are. They're all okay to do. And find something that you love, because it won't be a chore and it will be something that can be sustained. So that's my number one lifestyle supporter of the immune system. The next is sunshine. So sunshine is the most powerful form of vitamin D. And yes, you can get a little bit from foods, but you can't get what you need from foods. We need to get it from the sun. And why do we need vitamin D? You know, it's often associated with calcium absorption or just getting a tan, which is lovely. But individuals who have low vitamin D status have a higher risk of contracting respiratory tract viral infections. And in fact, if your vitamin D levels are below 75 nanomoles per litre, you're twice as likely to get a respiratory tract infection. And this is because what vitamin D does is it's used to create antimicrobial peptides, they're called, so AMPs, and it creates them on the surface of your lungs that improve your immune defense. So they're really important. And there's actually been research on the current virus, it's circulating the globe, that 90% of the people who end up on a ventilator have critically low levels of vitamin D. It's also been noted that vitamin D deficiency is more prevalent with those who have an autoimmune disease, what I was talking about earlier with that autoimmunity. So it has a really protective effect on the body. Now, interestingly, I think when we think about Australia, you think sunny country, everyone's outside, but 25% of our population is vitamin D deficient in summer, and 75% of us are deficient in winter. And that's because our levels drop in winter. So it's really important to get it enough sunshine in the summer months. So what do you need to do? Well, we need 15 to 30 minutes. You need a bit longer on that scale if your skin tone is darker, of direct sun exposure daily, with your arms and your face exposed. So when the sun is overhead, So it's not enough to head out at 8 a.m. You need to be getting that sun exposure between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Now, ideally in summer, you want your vitamin D levels to be around 100 nanomoles per litre for optimal health. And you can find this out with a routine blood test through your GP, so that it will let you know where you're at and the best course of action. Now, vitamin D does lots of other things. The other thing that it does, it stimulates release of serotonin, one of our feel-good hormones. And what's really important is when serotonin is high, cortisol is low. So you know how I suggested 20 minutes of movement to reduce cortisol? Well, you can walk outside, and it's a perfect combination of two immune supporting actions. You've got the movement and you've got the sunshine. Now, the third one that we've talked a little bit about already, and we were talking about what counts as sleep deficit, so less than 6 hours per night. But optimally, based on extensive research, what we and as human beings require is between 7 to 9 hours per night as standard, and the average is 8 hours. So tips that can help you is aiming for the same bedtime each night, and really help your body to recognize the routine by implementing bedtime rituals that help you wind down. The same for any parents out there, just like you do with your children. You have your step-by-step as you want to get them into bed. You don't want them hyped up. You do all the calming things, and we should be exactly the same as adults. You know, things like I talked earlier about ditching alcohol on some nights of the week. Swap it for a herbal tea. Chamomile tea is awesome for sleep. Turning down or turning off half the lights in the house to help your body recognize that it's nighttime and help with that melatonin production. Red lamps are actually really great. They don't interfere with our production of melatonin the way white lights do. And then with your sleep, if you do get sick, please do not soldier on. Do not just think that you need to keep going and brave it. Listen to your body, listen to the signals, and take that rest, because it absolutely will speed up your recovery. Now on to foods. So because as a nutritionist, obviously foods is a large focus of my work, and foods are such an important modulator of the immune system. Now, there's so much I could cover. I could talk all day on all the nutrients, but I really wanted to speak very specifically around 4 key nutrients that are crucial for immune function and where you can get them. So vitamin C, it came up earlier. It is absolutely crucial to immune function. It stimulates our immune cell numbers, their activity. It stops white blood cells from killing each other. It's so, so important. Now, a little myth busting on vitamin C. You've probably heard, drink a hot lemon drink when you're feeling ill. But vitamin C is really unstable in heat and air. So anything above 70 degrees actually destroys vitamin C. So, cutting a lemon and leaving it on the bench for half an hour and then squeezing it into boiling water is not going to help your immune response from that perspective. If you do want a nice hot immune tonic, then I suggest in warm water adding other ingredients that have really strong viral and antibacterial properties, like garlic and ginger, and some beautiful spices that are really great anti-inflammatory, so cinnamon, turmeric, and chili, and then drinking lots of that. Because is one hot lemon drink going to cure your illness? No, but really ramping up intake of garlic, ginger, and putting a slice of lemon in lots of drinks of warm water when you're ill, that will definitely help you. Also consuming a wide range of vitamin C rich foods daily. So things like red capsicum, kiwi fruit, strawberries, mandarins, oranges, and broccoli, really, really important for that maintenance of the immune system. Second one is selenium, incredible antioxidant, so important for immune health. It helps with insulin production, which helps get that excess glucose out of your bloodstream. So our soils in Australia are a bit selenium deficient. So we're actually all at risk of being deficient in selenium, but you can get your recommended daily intake from just 3 to 4 Brazil nuts, which great news for people who love them. I know if you haven't tried them or you're a bit overwhelmed, they can be a little bit big. So I recommend crumbling them up and adding them as topping to your cereal, muesli, on roast veg or a salad. And then you can also get selenium from things like prawns, salmon, pork, whole grains, garlic. You know, it's all there. Now, the third nutrient is vitamin A. Now, this might not be the first thing that springs to mind, but vitamin A is really crucial for producing antibodies. So during infectious periods, our need for vitamin A goes up. So you actually need to consume more from your diet. So foods that are rich in vitamin A are any foods that have a bright orange or red color, red capsicum, carrot, sweet potato, pumpkin. Just actually half a cup of sweet potato contains 150% of the recommended daily intake. And the richest source of vitamin A is actually in liver. Now, I know liver is not everyone's cup of tea, but if you freeze liver, you can grate it into minced dishes. It's got a very neutral flavor and no one will know it's there. It's also really rich in iron, which is super important for immune function too. Now, the fourth one is zinc. So like vitamin C, you're probably familiar with zinc for immune function. Zinc is really important for our mucous membranes, and also it stops viruses from replicating. So it has a really powerful immune function. It also helps shuttle vitamin A around the body. So the two work really well together. So how do you get it? 6 oysters contain almost 3 times the recommended daily intake. Red meat contains zinc. Whole grains like the things I mentioned earlier, quinoa, rolled oats, also things like lentils, chickpeas, cannellini beans, or legumes, and nuts and seeds. So what I recommend for all of my clients is including seeds, a broad variety on everything from your breakfast, salads, roast veggies, soups. It's a great way to increase zinc intake, as well as you'll be getting fiber and healthy fats. You can also add things like lentils into minced dishes because they go, I promise you, I do it all the time. They go completely unnoticed and have so many other nutritional benefits for you. So those are all my top tips for nutrition and lifestyle supporters of the immune system. I know before we jump into questions that we have covered a lot in this session, a lot of ground, and because we've covered the 2 parts of the immune system, some key considerations around what suppresses the immune system, and then also what we've just been through around what to support it. Now, I've been to enough conferences to know that it's really tempting when you hear new information and you walk out completely motivated and you think, okay, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to go to bed tonight at 9 p.m. and then tomorrow I'm going to walk and I'm going to do that every day for the next 3 months. And I'm only going to eat fresh fruit and veg. But being the change manager that I am, it's really important to acknowledge that small incremental changes are what's going to be sustainable. So not a massive overhaul that's going to overwhelm. So what I'd encourage you to do from all the things that I've shared today is have a think about what you're doing really well and acknowledge, you know, are you getting great sleep? Fabulous. Are you moving every day? Excellent. And then pick one of the things that's new to you and just pick one of those to focus on for the next couple of weeks, particularly the lifestyles, because I guarantee you, if you are getting better sleep, if you're moving your body more, you're going to be more inclined to fuel your body better with food, and then it becomes a cascade of positive habits. So really focusing on the fact that these are not, habits just to focus on when you fall ill, but these are preventative strategies that support you for the rest of your life.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Cailie. There's just so much goodness in there, so much knowledge. And I have to say also so much passion from you about food as well. And as I mentioned, if you're not following Cailie on Instagram yet, do go check her out, because I've already cooked like 2 out of 2 recipes that I've seen come up on the feed, because they just look so good. And I just love learning about how they're actually helping me and my family as well. She's got some really yummy recipes. Cailie also mentioned a beautiful immune tonic that she's got a recipe for, and she's very kindly pulled together a nice little downloadable for us that we'll be sharing with everyone in our post-event email tomorrow, along with a replay of today's event, because as Cailie said, there's so much in there. I know I've been taking notes madly. So that'll be available in the Drop-In Women's Health community. So you can kind of go in, pause, rewind, just kind of grab all that goodness. We've had a lot of questions come through. I'm not sure, I might pick 1 or 2 really quickly, see how we're going for time. But I do want to reiterate that we're really grateful for everyone's questions. And Cailie, if you're available, I would love to have a follow-up chat with you in the next couple of weeks, where we go through the questions that we didn't get through today, to make sure that we get answers for everybody.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you so much. Okay, amazing. So I'll just have a quick little scan through. Lots around sleep, lots around supplements. Okay, what will be interesting? Someone asked about coupling foods together to get maximum nutrient absorption. Are there any kind of quick combos? Because I mean, for example, you spoke about collagen and vitamin C. Are there any kind of foods that work really well together?
Sure.
That's just interesting.
So top ones for immune function. So iron, I didn't get to talk about it today, but it's so important, because if you think about iron, red blood cells, white blood cells, so important. Now, there's 2 forms of iron, the heme, which is from animal sources, and then the non-heme, which is from plants. Now, the non-heme, so plant source of iron, so dark green leafy veg, that needs a vitamin C buddy to be absorbed by the body. You don't need the vitamin C buddy for a meat, but you do need it for the plant sources. So that would be a really key one. Squeezing lemon juice on top of your salads or veggies, steamed veg, really great way to absorb maximum iron.
Okay, great. Quick question on liver. Is there a particular animal liver that you're referencing when you sort of talk about grating liver over food, or
no, just any. You can get chicken liver. There's any kind of liver. It's just a really nutrient dense organ if you eat meat.
Okay, wonderful. Do you have any thoughts on Manuka honey, and in particular any particular brands? I know there's so many different types of Manuka, and the price in particular can vary greatly.
Wildly.
What are your thoughts? Yeah.
So honey is a really important one. So some people might know, you've heard that it's a really great for the immune system, but there's honey and there's honey. So raw honey has, and particularly Manuka honey, has strong antimicrobial, antiviral, and antifungal properties that are really great. The honey that you find on the shelves in Coles and Woolies has been heat treated. And with that heat treatment, it destroys a lot of the nutrients. Now, that being said, honey is also just a really nice coat to the throat. So that whole old wives' tale about honey and lemon drink, it can be useful. So even just the Capilano honey from the shelf